Today we're making the Southern Living Magazine's Utterly Deadly Pecan Pie. What makes this pie different from the classic pecan pie is there is no corn syrup in the recipe. And what also makes it a little easier is that it's made in a cast iron skillet, so there's no fluting or crimping of the crust. Now, I grew up in North Carolina, and we say pecan pie.
Pecan or pecan looks like already 82% say clearly pecan.
So no matter what you call it, pecan or pecan, this is one dynamite pie. Using my frozen butter sleeves, I'm going to butter the bottom and the sides of this cast iron skillet. I read some comments where the pie stuck. You don't want that. So I placed this into a 10-inch cast iron skillet, and I placed a sheet of parchment on the bottom and buttered the bottom of the cast iron skillet as well as the parchment. If you don't like crimping and fluting your crust, this is a great pie for you. Our pie filling starts with 4 eggs. Go ahead and whisk them until they're foamy. And we're adding 1.5 cups of light brown sugar. Really want to get that brown sugar whisked in well, and make sure you don't have any hard clumps from the brown sugar. There's one. If you do, just kind of mash it. So if you find some and they're too hard to mash between your fingers, just remove them. We add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. And yes, this is sweet. Pecan pie is one of the things that I always make. And so I am so excited to make this today. Our next ingredient is 1/2 cup of melted butter that has been cooled. For flavoring, the pecan pie uses vanilla, and we are adding 2 full teaspoons. This is an adjustment I have made to the recipe. The original Utterly Deadly Pecan Pie has 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. But I want 2 teaspoons. That really amps up a pecan pie. For thickener, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. And this recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of milk. This is the first time I've ever put milk in a pecan pie, so I cannot wait to see how this turns out. And last but not least is our chopped pecans. The original recipe calls for 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. I am increasing that to 1 full cup. This pie is baked in a 10-inch cast iron skillet. Then we're sprinkling 1 tablespoon of powdered sugar in here. And that's just to seal the crust a little bit. Crust is coming way up the side, so I'm going to pretty this up just a little bit. Now, I've never made this pie before. I may be making a mistake, but having made many pecan pies, I know that it's not going to puff up beyond that crust. And now we come back and lay whole pecan halves on this pie. This original recipe calls for 1.5 cups of whole pecans, and I think 1 cup will do it. And my final modification to this pie is that I am brushing melted butter on each of the pecans. If you do this step, you want to melt only half the butter and bring it out and then stir until the butter is completely melted. You'll want to make sure that butter is not too hot if you do this step. But this is what I do to every pecan pie that I make. That prevents them from burning. Into a 325-degree oven for 30 minutes. At the 30-minute mark, you're going to reduce the oven temperature to 300 degrees and cook another 30 minutes without opening the door. So we'll be back. Now I'm happy my crust did not over brown. That's what I was a little worried about. So back in the oven for 3 hours with the door closed and the oven turned off. You see that the top is very crispy. The pecan sunk into the filling. I'm glad I cut the crust down because I was afraid it was going to over brown. I think this turned out great, and I can't wait to slice into it. One reviewer, which gives this a 5-star rating, says, in the oven, all of the carefully placed pecan halves sank out of sight, and I thought the plan to repeat this recipe went down with them. Cutting into it the next morning was like carving a creme brulee with sugary crumbs flying. Then we took our first breakfast bite, and we could have eaten the entire pie. Looks good to me. In place of corn syrup, we use brown sugar, and I think it tastes just delicious. I added an additional 1/2 cup of chopped pecans in the center, just like another reviewer had done, and I would have done that anyway. I've always put 1 cup of chopped pecans in my filling. The other thing that I did differently, I used 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. That brings through the vanilla flavoring, which I love in a pecan pie. The inside texture is very similar to the small individual pecan pies you can buy at the store. I mean, in the South, we have these little individual small pecan pies that are sitting on the counter at every store. It's very similar to that if you're familiar with those little hand pies. It's definitely different. But as you see, I'm liking it. So happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you give this utterly deadly Southern living pecan pie a try.